Welcome to Life on the Spectrum. It's a regular show that we do on Nutmeg TV. Thank you so much, Nutmeg TV, for allowing us to be here. Today we're going to, well, just a little bit about Focus is that we've been in existence for 21 years, and we have for 5 years now, we have a special ed, state-approved special education program. And we have 2 residential programs. We have a group home for teenagers in Barkhamsted with trauma and autism. And then we have a young adult program, /adult program in Torrington for adults and young adults 18 and over. And we have 6 young adults in apartments, and we have some scattered sites. And it's really an area that we want to develop. Because, as we have said before, the young adult and adult population, there's just not enough services for everybody, period. We would love it if you would like us on Facebook. Those things will go up later on our website. But we've been providing services for 21 years, and I think our program is amazing. It's based on social learning, relationships, and you'll see as we go on the work that we've done and the results. Today we happen to have Dillon with us, and I would like to introduce Dan Sikovsky, who is our Director of Autism Services. He's my sidekick on a lot of this stuff. We do panels, we have special, that's the other thing I wanted to mention, is that if you are interested in anything, we do have a Autism Spectrum Unplugged panel that goes around and talks about what it's like to be on the spectrum in their own words, and people have found these trainings invaluable. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce again Dillon. Dillon, how old are you?
I'm 19 years old.
19, and you've been with us for how long?
5 or 6 years.
Okay. And what I like to say about Dillon is that when he first came to us, he said that he was a train wreck. And I will go into that more, but I would like to say that 5 years later, he's a train wreck who's on track he's graduating this year. He has done amazing. He feels good about himself, etc. So, Dan, what would you add to that?
It's just amazing growth we've seen, and it's been slow growth, and we met him where he was at every step of the way to make sure that he was able to get where he wanted to get. And he found new things he was interested in along the way, and he just really grown as a person.
He just keeps growing. Now, when he says he was a train wreck, I'm going to ask Dillon how he saw him how did you see yourself as a train wreck?
Well, when I meant train wreck, I meant I was an anxious mess. So throughout my life, I've had a lot of people who have tried to find ways to help me cope and deal with me, but they were never around very long, and they often didn't know what to do with me, so they just sit there and play cards with me, and nothing would ever get done. And some of these people were rather encroaching and were maybe applying too much pressure, and I started to develop bad relationship with them. In the end, I felt like nobody could help me, and with the exception of Focus.
Well, before you got to Focus and you felt that nobody could help you, that must have been a terrible feeling. Yeah. Right? What were some of your issues? What was getting in the way for you? I
make vocal. Sometimes I used to scream, not scream, but whenever I get stressed out, I would go and make loud noises, yep. And it was very uncomfortable for people. And I did well in school for a bit, but over time I just never really got to really sit in my classes and learn, and I started to fall behind academically as well.
When I first met you, you were wrapped in a blanket, and you had a terrible attitude, and just were feeling, I didn't think you were a bad person. I just thought, I felt badly for you that you were didn't feel comfortable in your own body, so to speak. Was that accurate?
Yeah.
And Dan, what would you say to that?
I would say, when you say the train wreck, it was how you were presenting with behaviors and your sensory needs. It just, what I see with you too is when you feel anxious, you express it, outwardly. So that would kind of scare people away, and it's seen as a train wreck in that way,
Yeah, it's kind of common to kind of hide your emotions in the social world and in a job world, but that doesn't work so good when you're trying to improve.
Yeah, it is very
I
difficult. right?
apologize, something's going off.
It's very difficult in that sense. And I remember how you described yourself when you first came, like you're socially and academically at different ages, you were able to pinpoint that. Do you remember what you said?
I believe I said the doctors kind of put me at like the age of like a 3-year-old at terms of social skills, and the academically I was just normal, but social skills were just like 3-year-old.
But
And it must have been really hard for you because I know that your IQ is very high.
54.
Yeah, but you said emotionally it just they didn't go together, and that made it even harder for you. But I do remember you screaming and really having a hard time, but not screaming because you were feeling like a bad person, but you just didn't know what to do with yourself. Is that right, Dan?
yeah, well, how I saw it, Dillon, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it was energy inside you. So when you get anxious, energy would build up, and screaming in that way would get out the energy. It wasn't directed at anybody.
No.
It was just.
There have been times where have screamed for other reasons, but oftentimes it's because I just have too much energy, and
Is that energy anxiety, or is it? How would you describe that energy?
Energy is more of just, it's a tickle in your stomach that makes you want to move and twitch and do things. Like, it's not obvious, but right now my feet are just vibrating down there.
Yep.
And one thing I noticed the past few years that's really helped you is you start exercising a lot more, right?
Yep.
And has that been a healthy way for you to when you're, because it's not like you don't feel anxious anymore. Not like you don't have this energy inside you. You just found different ways to help.
Yeah, you found a way to control it. I mean, I do have less anxiety, but more importantly, I found a way to prevent my anxiety from, opening up and multiplying, or putting myself in situations where it can multiply.
So how did you do that?
Kind of, really, it's just learning to kind of control yourself. As crazy as it sounds. I have also gotten help through medication, and there's that, but it was very slow and painful, like learning to climb a mountain in one go, but it was from constant experiences that you guys have provided that I've been able to get to where I am today.
So so how did we help?
Well, you guys never gave up. You always put me on kind of an equal level, and you were willing to talk with me instead of, spitballing ideas that may or may not work. You sat there and you helped me through whatever I was facing, and giving me a strong ground for me a strong foundation and people I can lean back on helps me to build a building and helps me to, work from there.
So again, what we do at Focus, one of the things that I have the most pride in is that we really focus on relationships and meeting people where they are and slowly gently nudging them forward, because if a person with anxiety, especially, you can't get them to do something they don't want to do. If they're not comfortable, they're not doing it. And that's why kids often get called oppositional defiant, because they're refusing to do something. But they're refusing to do it out of anxiety. They're in that fight or flight moment, and they can't do it. What would you add to that?
I would add that it's trust too. And Dillon, how long did it take for you to build trust with us?
Probably at least a year before I would even be able to sit in a classroom. And even then, I was on a computer like 24/7, just doing stuff that I probably shouldn't be doing. Nothing inappropriate, mind you, but things like...
Just not schoolwork.
Yeah, just not schoolwork. I wasn't necessarily learning.
That's what, going back to meeting someone where they're at, is right now, whenever we have groups like social thinking or any of those types of groups, Dillon, you're kind of our star. You always are contributing, you're listening, you're adding incredible comments. We've even had you as a TA recently, right? Remember?
Wait, really?
Yeah, remember when you were in a science class?
Oh, yeah.
So, and he's just an incredible helper. But 3 or 4 years ago, even when he was trusting us, it was very difficult for you to sit in. I remember those social thinking classes. You would be in.
Yeah, anxious people are very sensitive, and
yeah, you'd be in the quiet room for like for 3/4 of it and only be able to come out for 10 minutes.
I remember I once went outside to play with another student, and then I came back in and I was completely spent for the rest of the day. And it was just something that normal kids would just have fun doing. But for me, it just was so tiring and so stressful that I just couldn't take it anymore.
That's the social anxiety. And anxiety does have a tremendous effect on your body, on your mind, and it does, you know, and that's what, like, one of our kids, and I'm not sure which one it was, but said that going to school was like going off to war. Oh, I do know. I know who it was.
Yep.
And he said that's the amount of anxiety. Every time he loaded up his backpack in the morning to go to school, he said, I feel like I'm going off to war. He says, I'm going to a place where people don't understand me. And he actually did the best. His refuge was in the bathroom and talking to the janitors. He said the janitors took more time with me than other people to try and understand me. So Dillon, we never gave up on you. We worked on the relationship. We learned not to push you beyond where you. Well, we learned not to push you because you weren't going to go, right?
Yep.
And what else, Dan?
What also helped is you've always been very good about letting us know where you're at. Sometimes it was too much. You know, we're talking about the screaming. But if any sessions I'd have with you or any other clinicians, you would be very blunt with what you needed. And you're also very self-aware. So we would have to push you. And we still do a little bit. You know, sometimes you might say, I don't know if I can do it. But then we kind of have to nudge a little bit. It's like, an example is maybe you'd be like, I think I can only do half a day. I only have the energy enough for half the day. And we're like, well, that's good. We understand that, but let's try to go a little bit more and keep pushing it a little bit. You know, not too much, not say, hey, you have to go the whole day.
Yeah, it's kind of like lifting weights, actually. You really can't be expected to be able to lift a house when you haven't really gotten your mind around 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Excellent example.
And we talk about it as like hurdle help, you know, getting them to the next
Hurdle
step.
help.
Helping them to the next step, and eventually, like you're saying, laying down the foundation and then building from there. You're not going to build a house in one day.
Yep.
And Dillon, you know, when you were having such a hard time, how did your peers help you? Were they understanding? Were they judgmental?
I believe they were really understanding. Like back in my old school, well, kids didn't really deal with me at all, but these kids kind of go through similar struggles as I do because we all have autism and we all deal with the same problems.
And what are some of those problems?
Well, social anxiety, like you said before, is a major problem. Some people come from rather unhealthy backgrounds as a result of the partial result of their autism, but not in a large part. But from being misunderstood for so long, it can lead to isolation and anxiety and all those bad buzzwords and stuff like that. And another thing that the kids have is that they often, because of their autism, they're often behind in school because once people don't really know how to deal with you, they don't know how to keep you in class, and you end up falling behind as a result of that.
Yeah, and that's for a lot of our students, and Dillon is one of many of our students who expresses that they might be, like you were saying, doing well academically, could do the work, but being in a classroom is so much, and then if teachers don't know how to handle it, understandably, it's hard to understand how to help everybody, that then you might fall behind when it doesn't need to fall behind.
People with autism are not in any way less capable overall. We just operate in different ways.
Exactly. And Dillon, one of the things when you first came to us, you didn't know how to advocate for yourself or how to have the words to tell us what was going on with you.
And that's why I screamed.
That's why you screamed. And then when you started to when you started to trust us, then you were able to start telling us what your needs were.
And I would also add another thing that Dillon was really good about was accepting the feedback. He's always been good, even if, and this comes from, I believe,
You
our
gotta keep your
relationship.
mind open for growth.
Yeah, but I also think it comes from our relationship too, and trust that a lot of times we told you things you didn't want to hear, but you never like yelled back at us or became defensive about it. You're usually like, you're right, I understand. You know, not saying we're always right, but you were always willing to hear that feedback, and that's part of our program is being able to take responsibility and learn from that feedback.
And that sort of reminds me of like one of our kids, Alex says, not Alex from Fresh Start, but Alex Cable. Yeah, he says it doesn't matter whether you help me or not. It matters that you try. And I think that's sort of part of what you're saying too, is that we didn't give up on you. We kept trying. Sometimes you gave up on you though, right? Did
Not
you ever
really.
give up on you?
I mean, not really, actually.
Good.
Because, I mean, I know my worth. I walked into Focus knowing that I could be better, right?
You know your worth? I like that.
If you know every person, just the fact that we exist means that we have a weight that we can use in the world. And nobody should ever doubt themselves.
What is a way that you were able to develop that sense of worth? Because I feel like that was something you struggled with at the beginning.
A bit. One, kind of, I guess, finding my interest. So back when I like I said before, I was a train wreck, and my hobbies were even worse. And I found out that by kind of developing myself, I just started to pick up little tidbits of little flowers, little seeds along the way. Like now I don't just enjoy computers, I also like to make like art like this, and I've gotten really good at it and people love it. And it helps me to see the beauty in myself.
You used to do art on a calculator, which always blew my mind how you could do that. How do you do that? I know that you've moved on to other art forms, but how did you do art on a calculator?
Explain it for the people who might understand.
Simple.
So using like a calculator, we do something called coding, and you can use the code on a calculator, which basically tells the calculator what to do, and you could use that to create interesting patterns, and those patterns can turn into art.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And speaking of art, we're having an art show at the Canton
Yep.
Gallery on the Green.
Gallery on the Green, and it's this weekend, right?
Yeah, it starts this week. It's going to be there for the next month.
Oh,
but it's I believe
The opening is this.
the opening is tomorrow, actually.
We went yesterday.
Yeah, you're getting it set up. But it
You
doesn't.
had special.
Yeah,
You had a special.
Special privileges.
Since you're the artist, you got to see it before it actually is open to the public.
So it's at the Canton Gallery on the Green, and I think it's from like 1 to 5. It's on our Facebook page
Yep.
too. So, but
You'll even get to see my art there.
Yeah.
yep, and that's something that kids with autism tend to have a very creative side.
He's like creatively wired and socially challenged.
That's our definition of autism: is creatively wired and socially challenged. Because it's the social issues that it's the wiring that impacts the social issues, and really what they always say is they just want to belong, they want to be understood, and they don't want to be fixed.
Yeah, it's treating someone as a person. Like what we do also is pretty simple, treating them as a person and getting to know them and trying to help them for where they're at. And talking about the sense of community, sometimes like there's all this talk of inclusion and trying to, and that's also very helpful, but it's also, people need to feel included and be with people who are like them, to feel like I'm not alone in this.
I think in the old days, they used to want everybody to be included. And what I have found in my experience with the autism spectrum is that they like to be together to learn how each other functions before they go out in the world. And one of our kids many years ago said, you can, at Focus, you can learn how to be a teenager and how to be a person without anybody judging you. We just have a few minutes left. What words of wisdom would you like to wrap up with, Mr. Dillon? What advice do you have for people or parents that are out there?
For the people who have autism, is to never doubt your abilities and know that you too can blossom. And
I'm sorry, in what?
That you can become great.
Yep.
And it's actually even easier to do so because you're different.
What advice do you have to parents?
For parents, I believe that just try to be open-minded and accepting, accept that they're different, accept that they're interesting, and just try to work towards a way to make both your life and their life as great as it can be.
And one of the and Dan, I'm going to hit you up next. But one of the things is for parents is to try and understand the meaning of the behavior, because the behavior always has some meaning. It's always a way of communicating.
True, and not just myself, and a person I live with at home. Screaming wasn't just a way of, it was also a way of distancing themselves and being able to take a break from life, because as weird as it sounds, screaming is a very easy way to get people to run away from you.
It's a great point, Dillon, because it was not just the energy, but if you didn't want to deal with something now, you learned that if you screamed, people would avoid you and go away, so you'd get your own time.
I'm going to wrap up with you, but I want you to show your T-shirt. What does it say?
It says Seniors 2020, the one where they were quarantined.
Because technically, when did you graduate?
Last year, and I'm going to do it again this year.
So you're graduating again this year, and you're going to be leaving Focus, right?
Yeah, nobody ever really leaves Focus, but I mean, for the time being, I won't see your faces.
But where are you going?
Where did you come from? Where did you go? I believe I'm going to Newington, Cotton Eye Joe.
Cotton Eye Joe? Yeah. Dan, what do you have to say in our final moments?
I would say that the real key is for everybody, behavior is a form of communication. It's just trying to understand what the behavior is communicating. And it might be stress, it might be just being overwhelmed, it could be sensory, it could be a lot of things. It's trying to understand the meaning behind that behavior that goes for everybody. The child, the adult, anybody. Mm-hmm.
And relationships they just matter, and it's what we built our whole program on is relationships and acceptance. And so this is going to be a regular series that we're going to be doing. You're never going to know what we're going to do next, but we hope that you will join us on Life on the Spectrum. And if you're interested, check us out on Focus Autism.
I believe it's Focus Center for Autism.org.
.org.
And
yes,
I believe there's a picture of Dillon on there too.
Really?
Is there?
I think so.
You better look it up.
I thought it was a picture of a house.
Oh, there's probably a picture of house too.
And we have a Facebook page. We're on Instagram. But, please look at us up. Become our friends. And we're so proud of what we do. And just can't thank Nutmeg enough for letting us be here. And Dillon, thank you so much for being a part of this. And Dan as well.
Yeah, no problem.
Say no problem?
No problem.
No problem.
You're an expert at this now, right?
I'm what?
You're an expert at this now.
Were you nervous?
Not nervous, just ticklish.
That little tickle in your stomach?
Yep.
But you
Goes
managed
down to your
it.
toes.
You managed it well. So everybody, thank you very much. And we're going to have another show coming up pretty soon. And Dan, you have one final word?
It's just, acceptance and trying to understand and building those relationships, kind of repeating that, but that's so important. And it's simple things, it can be hard in moments too. It's not like everything is always going well, but some moments are harder, but just kind of trusting in that relationship.
And on that note, let's say thank you.
Thank you.
And see you again.
Thank you, listeners.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.